Now, hijackings in South Africa are most prevalent in Gauteng, KwaZulu Natal and the Western Cape. In other provinces, the month-on-month data shows an upward trend. But how can motorists protect themselves from this unpleasant experience? For more on this, we are now joined by security expert Mike Bolhuis. Mike, thank you so much for joining us for this discussion. How rife is hijackings in South Africa?
Thank you for the opportunity. It is rife and it is escalating. It's unfortunate that every time we are asked, we answer the same. It becomes worse and worse because crime pays. The criminal knows this, he can commit this and can get away with it. So once again, we sit with a situation where we see an escalation, and even in the reports and the statistics, it's a nationwide problem. It's everywhere. And specifically during these times now when there's a holiday season, we would urge the people to be positively paranoid and extremely careful.
Are these hijackings often accompanied by violent crimes such as assault and killings?
Yes, there's levels of hijacking. There are the, let's call it the lowest level, where you are weighted in by the criminals in a parking lot, and where they would drag you into your own vehicle, drive away with you, take all your groceries, take you to the ATMs, withdraw all your money, and then later ditch you and your car, or you first and later your car, or even steal your car. Other hijacking levels is those where there's an order for a specific vehicle. The most sought after vehicles are the SUVs, the cruisers, but it could be any vehicle that's specifically wanted by a syndicate. And these vehicles are usually either chopped, meaning they are taken apart for parts and the parts are sold, or they are taken abroad or just outside of South Africa to our neighboring countries. And then you get the other level of hijackings where those vehicles are used in cash-in transits, bank robberies, hits, murders, etc., or just being used by syndicates and criminals themselves in South Africa, and they usually have a network of people in even government, municipalities, and the authorities to make sure that they are never caught with those vehicles. And if they do get caught, they've got the cops and the traffic department officials in their pocket. So they drive around with these vehicles.
Sure. I mean, you speak of the most sought after cars being the cruisers and the SUVs. How prevalent are the smaller type of cars in them being hijacked?
The smaller cars, not actually, but the criminal of today would, hijacking is also when they wait at your gate, grab you in your car, get into your property with your car. They've hijacked you right there and then. It's a short hijack into the property. Then they hold you in the property, take all the valuables very quickly and leave with your car, and sometimes take one of the persons with, as I've said, emptying the credit cards. Some of these hijackings, kidnappings can happen over a period of 4 to 5 days. The longest case that the longest time that these criminals held an elderly couple that we investigated was 5 days, because they've had to, over a period of time, withdraw 400,000 rand. And they obviously have guns and weapons and threaten and intimidate those who they hold to make sure that the bank does not suspect. And if the bank starts asking questions, they give answers that is satisfying. And the 400,000 in this specific case, and in most of these cases, when they do commit these crimes, are paid. So smaller cars are usually just used and then discarded, especially those with trackers. I also must warn that the criminal of today does a bit of an investigation. He knows which cars is the most difficult to hijack, and he also knows that which car's parts sells easily and the information cannot easily be detected by the authorities. And he also knows the worth and the value, and he would know which cars usually have trackers. So the smaller cars, not really.
In describing this, because this sounds absolutely horrific, Is it quite often premeditated? Do they follow you for a number of days, look at your patterns, or does it happen sporadically that you're driving in and in that moment of opportunity, they would then come in and hijack you?
Much less the opportunity way, but the opportunity crime still does happen. I mean, if they walk around and see a car with keys or it's not locked, they would try. They operate with jammers as well, so they can get into vehicles and with other forms of remotes into the vehicle, but it's always planned in our opinion. There's some form of intelligent move. They would watch. They would, especially on an order of a specific vehicle, they would find the vehicle in the area and then they would do surveillance. They would find out everything about the address and the owner. So they will have proper information, and then they would pounce at the right time and then execute the crime. And usually no evidence is left behind. So, advice is very difficult to give in any of these situations other than to ask people, especially the ladies, to be extremely vigilant, careful, not to operate on their cell phones in cars. Try and always take somebody with you when you do your groceries. Don't drive at night. Take the busiest routes. Watch out for smash and grabs as well, and all other crimes that can be committed amongst your ways wherever you're going. But don't just do everything in a rush. Take a bit of time when you go into the parking area. Have a look around, see if you're followed. Walk past your car at first, and then on your way back, still from a distance, open it up with the remote and see if somebody else is watching you and seeing what you're doing, seeing if are you being watched and being followed and waited upon to get into your car, because that's when they jump in. And remember, once you're in the vehicle, there's a knife at your stomach and a gun against your head. There's very little you can do. All you can do is drive. You can have how many codes, how many anti-hijacking devices. If the vehicle don't go, they will hurt you. So the idea is to get into your vehicle safe. Have the car locked. Maybe have somebody with you at all times. Unfortunately, this is what it's come to be safe.
And what's the recovery rate of these cars?
It's interesting that you asked that. The other day, I spoke to a unit that works for us that's retrieving vehicles. Not only vehicles that is not being paid by the bank. He says it's horrific. It's about undoable to get the vehicles just back that's not paid for. But he says what's even worse is the hijacked and stolen vehicles. Once the vehicles are hijacked or stolen, most people that can afford it will just go the insured route and wouldn't even be interested in getting it back or trying to find it. So that's the one big problem. The other problem is once it's incarcerated, or the criminals is incarcerated and the vehicles are impounded, further crimes get committed. By the time you get your car back, it has no engine, it has no wheels, you just have a body, because the corruption sometimes in the SAP 13 units and holding units is rife as well. And the parts and whatever's left of the car gets stolen there as well. So it's another ball game. So most people just, when they have an insured vehicle, it's just claim the insurance and get a new vehicle.
This is absolutely astounding. I mean, one of the biggest fears is for parents who are in a car with children and are confronted with such a situation. I mean, you did mention earlier on that there aren't any specifics in terms of tips that you can give to people. But if parents do find themselves in such a situation, what's the first and most important thing to do?
Well, as I've said, unfortunately, we live now in a country where you have to be positively paranoid. You must only travel if you have to. And if you do travel, you must do a bit of a careful planning. You must be careful. And when you have children and you have to drive with children, you must make sure that you do it in the quickest, safest way and route, and be aware that nothing can happen to you, or people can jump the car or hijack you, or for any other reason, criminals can get involved in your situation there. I always suggest that kids are taken to school. We are talking about people here who are the haves, can afford it though. That there should both parents, male and female, should be present, and that they should be very vigilant. But if you're at a mall, I would suggest that you don't take your kids with you when you go to the car. It sounds bizarre. If you have a lot of groceries and you've got an SUV and you know you've got a vehicle, there's ways to find out what is the top vehicles that are being stolen, and you know which mall has what kind of crimes being committed. You have to do a bit of an investigation. And then once you are secure, you get the kids in front of the mall. Or you take your nanny maybe with, or somebody or a friend that can assist when you go in a group. Because it's very easy for you, while getting into the car with your handbag, with your groceries, the next moment 3-4 guys are with you in the vehicle. They isolate you in the vehicle and they drive off with you. And sometimes they even would rape the ladies and they would kill them. Let me tell you, the life of a person today with the slightest of resistance is worth nothing to the criminal that has it or a knife. Unfortunately, this is what it's come to.
Sure, Max, this is quite sad, especially for South Africans who are simply going about their lives, but these are the sort of things that we have to be very cognizant of. As you say, we need to be extra paranoid in our daily lives when it comes to moving around in our cars with our children or even alone. Thank you so much for the advice that you've given. That was security expert Mike Bolhuis giving us there some of these gruesome statistics when it comes to hijackings in South Africa.